Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can you all hear me in the back? No. Okay, I don't do much hacking stuff anymore. I kind of got moved up into management a while ago. So what can I tell you other than if you ever decide to start a business, you're living in ground zero for where to start a business in terms of the amount of money and the amount of work there is, or as I call it, government contracting 101, or where does all that money come from and how do people earn it, how do they win it when you're working on a government contract. Who am I? Been in IT for a long time, decided it was time to start my own company. With luck, I'll never ever sit in front of HR again. That's the goal. And when I'm not doing all that digital crud, I play a lot of acoustic guitar. Why would you want to start a business? The obvious reasons for any industry, you want to be part of something cool. In our particular career, I don't know where you folks all are, but at some point or another you find yourself kind of bumping your head against the ceiling. You make it up through six figures pretty quickly, and then it starts to slow down, and it doesn't really improve too much over the next 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years until you choose to retire. And you may have entirely too much free time, or so your spouse or significant other or kids or dog or cat might think. The last one's really a joke because you will be working nights and weekends. Why government contracting? It's easy. It's where the money is. And you can't figure out what the budget is. These numbers come from dozens of different news sources, some from the White House, some from the Congressional Budget Office. In a nutshell, if you work in security, it's big, it's getting bigger, and those numbers there are in millions. So you're looking at a budget that's heading towards $13 billion. That's 13 with 9 zeros after it before the decimal point. If you pick up even the tiniest piece of that, you've got a business. You're working. You got the ability to hire people. You've got the ability to keep them. You got the ability to hire people to make sure you stay out of jail so the taxes are done right. And my particular favorite part is the stability. If you're working in the commercial world, you're chasing things that last weeks or months. In the government, you're chasing things that last years. Common contracts are 5 years. They often can go as long as 10. Hey, if I get a job for 10 years, I might start thinking about retiring. Why would you be interested in starting? The federal government has decided quite some time ago that they want small businesses to get a huge chunk of the action. Do they always? Yeah, there's faults with it. But in a nutshell, they want 23% of the money to go to smalls. Anybody in this room starts a business, you are probably a small business, unless you happen to have inherited $1 billion from somebody who really loves you more than I do. And if you've got any sort of set-aside that you can manage, woman-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, then there's even designated pieces of that pie that are then set aside for you, and often you can bid on it, or you work with a larger company who has to meet these numbers. The folks in this building have to meet these numbers. So if you can help them out, you can be their new good friend. What do? First, like any business, you develop a business plan. Figure out what the heck it is you want to sell. Now in government, it's a little different because you don't just sell whatever the heck you want. Their primary concern is past performance. What have you done for them already? If you have been working personally for a company, for any agency, you have past performance under the federal acquisition regulations. You can use that as your company's past performance. So if you come from mega agency, super secure agency, whatever agency, forestry service, you can claim that as your own. That's what gets your foot in the door, that and being small.
But that's only if you work directly for them, not as a contractor, right?
No.
Oh, so if you were under their employee in any way, shape, or form?
As a sub, the only catch is some primes won't back you up on that. But if the government person will, who cares? Ideally, you would get a contracts person to back you up on that, but it doesn't have to be. It can be the program manager, project manager, somebody that you worked for directly, because the contracts person might be in another state. They might be on the other side of the country. They might not even work for the same organization. Like you get a contract for one agency and GSA actually manages the contract itself and the money. You know, you've never met these people and you never will, unless things go horrifically bad and you wind up in court. But you know, we're assuming you won't do that. So how do you get in the door? Most area businesses have a small business office. Most agencies have a small business office. These are folks that you can go in and talk to. Is it going to yield work? Probably not. But are you one step closer to finding it? You sure as heck are. I learn every day. Second, set up the business. Obviously, just like your cool band or whatever else you're doing, you're going to want to come up with a name. Then go to Dun & Bradstreet and get a DUNS number. Go to the Census Bureau. Don't ask me why the Census Bureau is in charge of it, unless it's because they're under Commerce. But you figure out what the NAICS codes are. Guess what? Ain't no NAICS code for cybersecurity. So you're going to choose about 8 or 10 or 11 or 12 because they show up all over the place. This is what makes tracing the money so dang hard too, because it's all over the place. Then you register with the, on the SBA, there's a site called SAM, and you get what's known as a cage code. That's what identifies you to the government as a unique business. The cage code and the DUNS number, you are now a unique business. You can be a business of one. You can be using your home address as your business address. And if you ever plan to do cleared work, don't use a mail drop. Use your home address. IRS, pardon me?
Why?
Because they need to visit, and they can't visit a post office box. So they will come to your house, and they will sit down, and then they will do what they always do, which is interview your neighbors and find out about your proclivities.
You can use it as a mailing address so that the general public doesn't know where you live if you're super concerned about privacy, as long as when you're talking to DSS, you're providing them your physical address.
Thank you, because they will visit you there.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Then you need to get an employer identification number. It's like a social security number, but it's because you're going to eventually hire people. That's kind of the point. You don't want to do it all yourself. You might want to sleep in once in a while. Last thing, register as a business with your state. Used to be everybody went to Delaware, but they don't do it anymore. You can register in Virginia. I don't know about DC or Maryland, but it's not terribly expensive. It's not terribly complex, and they have people on the phone who will walk you through it.
Don't register in DC.
Don't register in DC. Thank you, sir. Okay, register anywhere but DC. We did in Virginia. 20 years ago I had a business. We registered in Delaware because it was a lot cheaper. It was about $1,000 to register a business in the early 90s. Now it's like $50 or something. Everybody got religion. Okay, other than small business offices, where do you find work? Except for the stuff that keeps showing up in the newspaper lately, all of this stuff is public record. It's supposed to be public record. So the majority of the work you might find is going to be visible on sites that the government has made, so you can show what they're doing with you, the taxpayers' dollars. So FedBizOps is one. Another one is teaming. That means working with other businesses. Business development, go to every event, shake hands. It's the same thing in the commercial world. Mentor-protege programs. The government will even pay big businesses like this one to work with you and help you find work. Crazy concept, but they do it. And the last is agency-specific solicitation sites. Not everything shows up on FedBizOps. And some things are on contract vehicles, so you won't see them anyway, but that doesn't matter. You can't bid unless you know somebody who can. But the point is, there's many, many, many resources for where you might find work you want to bid on. So, setting expectations. Be prepared to work for someone else for a while. This will take a while. You might be waiting a year or two before you get your first prime contract. But in the meantime, sub. You're probably already working that way anyway when you work for another company. The only difference is that you got to figure out how to pay your own benefits. But sub. Just meet everybody you can, find out what they need. They need folks like you, so. And then the last is that be aware that just because the government says, we want you to give us 80 pages of your brilliance by this date, and the work is going to start in 30 days. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're sitting 8 months later and you get an email from the contracts officer and says, yeah, our bad. Can you send us back a letter that says your pricing is good for another 6 months? We seem to have let a deadline slip. So if you can get past the frustration of working with the government, once you are working for the government, you can be working 5, 10, 20 years, or until you sell the business. So you won something. What next? What is the government is most particular about? What do they get the most bent out of shape? Sloppy work, turned in late. Do it right, get it in on time. If there's a reason you can't get it in on time, like a government person went on maternity leave for 4 months, and this is the sole person you can get information from, tell them, because they don't know. The contracts people and the technical people who manage people who do what you folks do for a living aren't even in the same building. They're not in the same chain of command. They don't even know each other. So you got to make sure that the contracts people know. And the last one is, anytime somebody tells you something verbally, get it in writing. People forget. And the last thing you want to do is get in trouble because you were late with something or they deem that you turned it in a sloppy form. Rewards besides the cool business cards. Being your own boss, building something of value, employing good people, and the potential for greater financial success. It's pretty simple stuff. So if you ever choose to do it, know it can be done. Every large company was once a small company. Every small company was once a startup. And this is ground zero for people working in cyber. I can't think of a better place on earth to do that work.
You do realize you have to print.
Pardon me?
You said cyber.
No. There's no beer here. We'll have to all go back to the other one. Okay. I'll just say cyber, cyber, cyber. All right, my name's Mike. Thank you very much. I wish I had a cool name. I don't. But they called me Whiskey when I used to ranger at Burning Man type events. So, thank you very much.